Like many of you out there, I'd like to consider myself to be somewhat knowledgeable in Star Trek. But honestly, never in my wildest dreams did I ever consider that an episode from The Next Generation would be banned. And the reason behind it is just unbelievable. But when I learned the reason why it was banned in the UK, it became perfectly understandable to me, and I can see their point of view in all this. Not just UK, but the entire European continent has been plagued with war for so many decades, even hundreds of years. So when Collider came out with an article talking about how the High Ground, I believe it was the 14th episode from the third season of The Next Generation, and that it was banned in the UK, I was quite surprised at the idea that this show, or rather this episode, would be banned. And I started asking why. So naturally, it forced me to open up the article to learn what was going on. But even before I get into the article about why it was banned, it still is amazing to me how we can make these episodes, and here in the United States we don't think anything about them, but in other parts of the world, certain topics, because of the history of that region, of that country, it can trigger such emotions that they don't want displayed through television. So Ensata separatists have decided that in order to get their independence, they are going to basically perform terrorist acts on the mainland of this world of theirs. And in the grandest of all attacks, they decide to kidnap the head medical officer of the flagship of the Federation, hoping that it will somehow force the Federation to side with them. And we all know it didn't work well. It didn't go well for the lead man, Finn. War itself is just a basic, violent means to, some would argue, an unnecessary end. I mean, they're willing to take the most extreme risks to get their point out, to do what they have to do to get the world to hear them and see their side of an argument. They're willing to go through this experimental dimensional shifting that's killing them.
We transport through a dimensional shift that the routine sensors can't trace.
Dimensional shifting? You can't do that with humanoid tissue.
There are risks, the designers told us, but it works.
So what would cause this episode to be banned in the UK? What was so bad about it that it triggered a complete boycotting of this one particular episode?
Yet there are numerous examples when it was successful. The independence of the Mexican state from Spain, the Irish unification of 2024, and the Kenzie Rebellion.
Yes, I'm aware of them.
Then would it be accurate to say that terrorism is acceptable when all options for peaceful settlement have been foreclosed?
The Irish unification of 2024. Hard to believe that such a made-up piece of Star Trek universal history became so controversial back in the 90s. It's just incredible. Though it seems like a throwaway line, if you know anything about the historical conflict between the Irish and the English, you understand the subtext. In 2024, the British will lose control of Northern Ireland, which controversially remained a part of the United Kingdom even after the rest of Ireland gained its independence in 1922. And it is the prediction holds, it won't be peaceful. By no means did the show need to have data use such a raw example of a country where terrorists would be successful in achieving their goal. The writers could have made up anything. It will never be clear if they were trying to be provocative or just even particularly culturally sensitive. In the American fashion in 1990s was still the period of time known as the Troubles, when groups like the Provisionary Irish Republic Army, the IRA, were using violence to try to compel the British to withdraw from the Northern Ireland, with a violent response from the British that has itself been called state terrorism. In 1989, a bomb planted by the IRA at the Royal Maine School of Music killed 11, Some have interpreted the entire episode as a ham-fisted allegory for the Troubles. This analysis does not feel quite right. It's more that during the 1990s, the violence portrayed by groups like the IRA Army was the first thing an American audience associated with terrorism. The movies could not get enough of the conflicts, from the dramas like The Crying Games, In the Name of the Father, and action movies like The Devil's Own and The Patriot Games. But more often than not, these movies were just mining the conflict for an easy and familiar source of drama. So apparently all over Europe, or at least in the UK anyway, this particular episode and the part that we just saw about Picard and Data having that conversation was edited. Throughout the 90s, this episode may have been played, but that scene was cut out. And it wasn't in 2007 until an unedited version was aired at on British television and screened as part of an art festival in Belfast. It's just amazing to me that we concern ourselves with the history of canon and the truth around it, and not recognizing the fact that this is just a made-up story just to move a plot along. But then when we have actual events like what happened over there with England and Ireland, and then when this episode comes along and makes mention of a fictional unification that'll happen in 24, it freaks out the government and demands an editing of it. It's just amazing how we are caring about canon in one way, but then we want to delete it when it affects us in another way. And I understand where the English were coming from in all this. I mean, my God, the bloodfest that was going on, it just had to be heart-wrenching. You know, it's a very touchy subject, and I've said it before, I can understand why the government would want to edit out certain things in this particular episode, but at the same time, I'm going to make the argument that this shouldn't be something the government should block. This should be up to the public to decide whether they want it in there or not. Oh, I get the concerns, because again, the history that this touches on is just very, very personal to so many people. I'm going to end the video right here, but at the same time, I just really would like to know what all of you think about this. Do you think the government has a right to edit these episodes just because of things that are going on in your particular time? Events like the IRA and these episodes airing about the same time that war is taking place, terrorism is taking place. Do you think the government should be silencing that? It's there, it's live, it's right in front of you. So why be afraid of this stuff? It should be out there for full view for all the public to see. Well, you tell me what you think about this, my friends. I'm going to end it right here. And until the next time, comment below, let me know, and God bless, my friends.